The atmosphere at the Dorian TV Awards in Los Angeles was buzzing with excitement. Cameras flashed, red carpets shimmered, and reporters jostled for sound bites from the biggest names in entertainment. But that night, it wasn't an actor, director, or musician who stole the spotlight, it was Prince Harry. He arrived sharply dressed in a tailored black tuxedo, Meghan Markle beside him in a flowing emerald gown that turned heads instantly. The couple smiled graciously at the photographers, seemingly unbothered by the constant questions hurled their way. After all, they were used to the noise. But what no one could have predicted was how quickly the charm would melt away. Inside the Grand Hall, the host, a well-known comedian, was introducing the nominees for the Humanitarian Impact Award. When Harry's name appeared on the screen, applause rippled across the audience. But as the words flashed, Harry Windsor, instead of Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, Meghan's expression subtly froze. Harry's jaw tightened, and he exchanged a quick look with the event producer at the side of the stage. He leaned toward his publicist, whispering something sharp enough to make her eyes widen. The cameras, meanwhile, caught every flicker of emotion. Moments later, the host continued, "Tonight, we honor Harry Windsor for his dedication to mental health awareness and veteran support." Harry's face reddened. To the public, it might have looked like stage lights. To those close enough to see, it was anger, pure and unfiltered. Meghan tried to place a reassuring hand on his arm, but he pulled away slightly, keeping his expression polite for the cameras. When his name was called to accept the award, he hesitated. For a moment, it seemed he might not go at all. But with hundreds of eyes watching, he finally stood up and walked toward the podium, applause echoing through the Grand Hall. He began his speech calmly. "Thank you to the Dorian Awards for this recognition," he said, his British accent crisp and composed. "This means a great deal, not just to me, but to everyone working to make mental health a global priority." But halfway through his remarks, his tone shifted. "However," he continued, "I must admit, I find it curious that my full name, and my title, were omitted. Not out of vanity, but out of respect. It's who I am, and what I represent." A murmur spread through the room. Some guests exchanged nervous glances, others looked down at their tables, unsure whether to clap or stay silent. The host, standing just off stage, looked mortified. Harry wasn't finished. "Titles are not about privilege," he said, his voice rising slightly. "They're about duty. My family's history, for all its complications, is part of who I am. To erase that is to erase a part of my story." The tension was thick enough to slice. Meghan sat still, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Then, in a move no one expected, Harry placed the award on the podium instead of taking it with him. "I appreciate the recognition," he said coldly, "but if my identity cannot be acknowledged in full, I cannot, in good conscience, accept this." Gasps filled the room. Meghan stood, whispering something urgently to him, but Harry had already turned toward the exit. Cameras whirred, flashes popped, and the audience watched in stunned silence as he strode past the tables and out through the golden doors of the ballroom. Outside, the press was waiting, and the scene exploded into chaos. "Prince Harry, why did you leave?" One reporter shouted. "Is it true you demanded they call you by your royal title?" Another yelled. Harry ignored them all, moving quickly toward the waiting car. Meghan followed close behind, her expression a mix of frustration and embarrassment. When they reached the car, she turned to him sharply. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered, her voice tight. "It was an award for your work, not your name." Harry stared out the window, jaw clenched. "They can respect the work and the man behind it," he replied. "If they can't do both, they don't deserve either." That moment, captured by dozens of cameras, was on every major outlet by morning. "Prince Harry storms off Dorian Awards," screamed one headline. "Royal tantrum in Hollywood," read another. Social media was ablaze. Some defended him, arguing that he had every right to stand up for his identity. Others accused him of arrogance, calling it another royal meltdown. Back in Montecito, Meghan was reportedly furious with how the night had gone. Friends close to the couple told media outlets that she had urged him to stay calm and rise above it, but Harry had felt deeply disrespected. By the next day, the Dorian Awards Committee released a statement. "We refer to all honorees by their professional or public names, not formal titles," it read. "We greatly respect Prince Harry's contributions, and regret any misunderstanding. But the damage was done. The video of him leaving, jaw tight, fists clenched, had gone viral. In one clip, a voice could be heard calling out, "You're not in Buckingham Palace anymore." The crowd had laughed, but Harry hadn't turned around. That night, sitting in silence at their Montecito home, he looked down at his phone, scrolling through headlines that dissected his every word, every glare. Meghan sat beside him, hand resting on his arm. "Next time," she said quietly, "maybe we just skip the red carpet." Harry didn't answer. He just looked out into the California night, half a world away from the palace he'd once called home, yet still haunted by the weight of the crown he could never fully leave behind. The morning after the Dorian TV Awards, Montecito was unusually quiet. The air carried a tension that hung between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle like an invisible wall. The world, however, was anything but quiet. Every television channel, talk show, and online outlet was dissecting the moment when the Duke of Sussex stormed out of one of Hollywood's most prestigious nights. On Good Morning America, the hosts debated the incident with visible discomfort. "I understand wanting to be respected," one presenter said carefully, "but walking out of a humanitarian awards ceremony seems dramatic." Across the Atlantic, British tabloids were far less polite. The Daily Mirror called it another royal disaster, while The Sun ran the headline, "Spoiled Prince Throws Tantrum in Tuxedo." Inside the Sussex home, Harry sat at the kitchen counter scrolling through the articles, his phone buzzing non-stop. Meghan, dressed in a soft beige sweater, was pacing nearby, speaking with their publicist on speakerphone. "Damage control, that's what we need," the publicist said firmly. "You made a statement, but it's being twisted into arrogance. If we don't respond soon, they'll write their own story." Harry sighed deeply. "I don't want to apologize for standing up for who I am." Meghan turned to him. "It's not about apologizing, Harry. It's about clarifying. You have to show them that you weren't angry, you were hurt." For a long moment, he didn't respond. The pride that had driven him to walk out still burned within him, but so did the realization that the world saw only the outburst, not the reasoning behind it. By noon, an official statement appeared on their Archewell Foundation website. Greater than, Prince Harry wishes to express his gratitude for the recognition at the Dorian TV Awards. While he regrets how events unfolded, his commitment to authenticity and respect remains unwavering. The tone was calm, almost royal in its precision. Yet, the internet remained divided. Some praised him for standing up for his identity, while others accused him of chasing the royal spotlight he had supposedly left behind. Meanwhile, in London, Buckingham Palace issued a brief and cold statement. Greater than, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are no longer representing the royal family in any official capacity. The matter at the Dorian Awards is a private one. Behind those polished words, palace insiders whispered that King Charles had been deeply disappointed. According to one royal correspondent, the king had been informed of the incident while reviewing charity plans at Clarence House. He reportedly shook his head and said quietly, "He still doesn't understand what we gave him freedom from." Back in California, Meghan had taken the children for a walk while Harry sat alone in the garden. The sun was dipping low over the Pacific, and for the first time in a long while, he felt the weight of his choices pressing down harder than ever. He thought about his years in the army, about walking behind his mother's coffin, about the endless headlines that had defined his life. For all the noise, he had only ever wanted one thing: to be seen as his own man, not just a royal shadow. But last night, that desire had once again turned him into a headline. His phone rang again. It was Tyler Perry, one of their few trusted friends in Hollywood. "Hey, man," Tyler said warmly. "I saw the footage. You were passionate, not wrong. But you can't give them that much power. You know how the press spins it." Harry chuckled humorlessly. "Yeah, I thought I left that world behind." Tyler's voice softened. "You didn't leave it, Harry. You just changed the stage." That night, Meghan joined him outside on the patio. The air was cool, and the ocean shimmered under the moonlight. "You know," she began softly, "when we stepped away from the royal life, it wasn't just about titles. It was about peace." Harry nodded slowly. "But they'll never let us have it. No matter what we do, I'm either too royal or not royal enough." Meghan reached out, taking his hand. "Then maybe it's time to stop reacting to them. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you are. Not the palace. Not Hollywood. Not anyone." Her words lingered, steady and grounding. For the first time since the awards, Harry felt the edge of his anger begin to fade. The next morning, they appeared together in a short video from their garden, thanking supporters for the award and briefly addressing the controversy. Harry spoke calmly, his tone far gentler than the night before. "Sometimes, emotions run high," he said. "But my work, our work, has always been about service, not titles. I'm grateful for the acknowledgement, and I look forward to continuing what truly matters." The video went viral again, but this time, the reaction was softer. Some called it mature, others rehearsed. Yet even critics admitted, the Duke seemed more composed, more self-aware. By the end of the week, the storm began to fade. But across the ocean, palace aides were already discussing what the latest incident meant for the family's image. One advisor to the king summed it up quietly: "Harry's still searching for where he belongs, and the world keeps watching him do it." As the sun set over Montecito that evening, Harry watched his children play in the garden. For a fleeting moment, laughter replaced headlines. And though the world might never stop judging, he finally understood that peace wasn't about titles or validation, it was about the small moments that no camera could capture. Still, somewhere deep down, the echo of that night at the Dorian Awards remained. Not because of the anger or the walkout, but because, once again, he had been reminded that even without the crown, he could never escape its shadow.